The twin suns of Xylos burned like molten coins in the sky, their combined glare bleaching the color from the cracked red dunes of the crimson wastes. Beneath this merciless light, the battlefield lay silent now, littered with the twisted wreckage of war. Shattered mechs, scorched armor plates, and bodies draped in the stillness of death. Smoke curled from cooling plasma burns, curling like ghosts into the thin, dry air. Among the carnage, half buried beneath the collapsed flank of a fallen skitter drone, lay a figure both delicate and regal, Princess Veilira of the Azure Dominion. Her once lustrous white hair, the color of moonlit frost, was matted with dust and dried blood. Her skin, naturally a deep cerulean blue like twilight over ocean trenches, was ashen where it wasn't bruised or torn. A ceremonial dagger, the kind used in betrothal rituals, protruded from her side, driven not by battle but by betrayal. She had refused the warlord Zoratha's demand of marriage, an act of defiance that branded her a traitor in the eyes of her own council. They'd left her here to die, pinned beneath wreckage, as a message to any who dared question the Dominion's new alliance with Zoratha's brutal clan. Hours bled into the burning afternoon. Flies buzzed. The silence pressed down like a physical weight. Then movement. From the far ridge, a lone human soldier trudged through the rubble, his combat fatigues torn and stained with rust-colored grit. His name was Cornvale, no hero's name, just a grunt from the Earth Coalition's 3rd Expeditionary Force, stranded here after his dropship went down during the opening salvos of the battle. He wasn't supposed to be alive. His squad wasn't. But Corin had a knack for surviving bad odds, though he'd long stopped believing in luck. He scavenged carefully, eyes scanning for rations, medkits, anything usable. That's when he saw her. Not just another corpse. The glint of fine, silver-threaded robes beneath the drone's metal carapace. The unnatural hue of her skin. The white hair catching the light like spun glass. He hesitated. Aliens, especially Dominion elites, weren't known for kindness to humans. Most saw them as little more than clever vermin. But something in her stillness wasn't the stillness of death. It was the stillness of someone clinging by a thread. Corin crouched, rifle slung over his back, and gently brushed debris from her face. Her eyelids fluttered. One eye, the color of liquid silver, opened and fixed on him with a mixture of fear and pride so fierce it made him flinch. She tried to speak, but only a rasp came out. He saw the dagger, knew what it meant. A political execution dressed as battlefield abandonment. Easy, Corin murmured, though he doubted she understood standard. I'm not with them. He didn't know if that was true anymore. Who was them in this mess? But he meant it. He worked quickly, using a piece of shrapnel as a lever to shift the drone wreckage just enough to free her legs. She cried out, a sound like wind through crystal chimes, and he winced with her. The dagger was still lodged deep. Pulling it could kill her. Leaving it could kill her slower. Corin had basic field medic training, enough to know infection would set in fast in this heat. He made a decision. With steady hands, he gripped the hilt. This is going to hurt, he said in standard, then pulled. Veilira arched off the ground with a silent scream, her fingers digging into the sand. Blood, dark and iridescent like oil on water, pulsed from the wound. Corin pressed a torn strip of his own undershirt against it, binding it tight with salvaged cord. She passed out then, her breathing shallow but steady. He stared at her, this alien princess left to rot by her own people, and felt a surge of stupid human anger. Who did they think they were? He slung his meager pack over his shoulder, lifted her as gently as he could. She was lighter than he expected, almost bird-like, and began walking. Not toward any base or signal beacon, just away, into the heart of the wastes, where no one would think to look for a traitor princess or a lost human. The desert tested them both. Corin rationed his last canteen, dripping water onto Veilira's cracked lips while swallowing his own thirst. At night, when the temperature plunged and the twin moons cast eerie shadows, he kept watch, rifle ready, listening for Zoratha's bounty hunters or Dominion patrols. Veilira drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes murmuring in her own lilting tongue, sometimes staring at him with those silver eyes full of questions he couldn't answer. Once, delirious with fever, she reached up and touched his stubbled cheek, her fingers cool despite the lingering heat in her body. Zoran? She whispered, mangling his name. He blinked in surprise. You speak standard? She gave a weak, almost imperceptible nod. Learned from prisoners. You saved me. He grunted, embarrassed. Didn't have much choice. Leaving you there felt wrong. She closed her eyes, a faint smile touching her lips before the fever took her under again. Days bled together. Their path became aimless survival. Find shade, find water, avoid detection. Corin fashioned a crude shelter from a wrecked hoversled's canopy. He caught a scuttling desert lizard, roasted it over a tiny fire, and offered her the best pieces. She ate sparingly, her strength returning in fits and starts. One evening, as they shared the last of the roasted lizard, Veilira sat up straighter, her posture regal even in rags. "Zorith seeks the Heartstone," she said quietly. Corin paused. "Michu." "The what?" "A relic," she explained. "From the first ancestors. It amplifies telepathic resonance. With it, Zorith could enslave the minds of entire worlds. My counsel, they believed giving me to him would buy peace. I refused. I told them he would use the marriage to claim the Heartstone anyway." Her voice hardened. "They chose convenience over courage. So they left me to silence my truth." Corin whistled low. "So the big ugly warlord wants a mind control rock. Great. And your people just handed it to him on a silver platter with a side of princess." Veilira's eyes flashed. "The Heartstone is hidden. Only the royal bloodline knows its location. I am the last who remembers." She looked at him, really looked at him, not as a lowly human but as an ally. "You saved my life, Corin Vale. Now I ask you to help me save my world." He laughed, but it was a dry, humorless sound. "Lady, I'm one guy with a half-charged rifle and blisters the size of grapes. What can I do?" "You are clever," she said simply. "Humans are unpredictable. Zorith expects Dominion resistance, not a human." She leaned closer, her voice dropping. "There is a monastery in the Glass Peaks. The monks there safeguard the entrance to the Vault of Echoes, where the Heartstone sleeps. If we reach it before Zorith's scouts." Her unspoken plea hung in the air. He should have said no. This wasn't his war. But he saw the determination in her eyes, the same fire that had made her defy her counsel, and something in him twisted. Maybe it was the way she'd trusted him with water when she was half dead. Maybe it was the memory of her hand on his cheek. Or maybe, after years of following orders in a war he never understood, he just wanted to do something that felt right. "All right," he said, standing up and brushing sand from his pants. "Glass Peaks it is. But we march at night. And you're carrying the heavy stuff." Their journey transformed. No longer just fugitives, they became purposeful. Veilira, though still weak, navigated by the stars with uncanny precision. Her knowledge of Xylos's terrain invaluable. Corin, in turn, taught her tricks of human stealth. How to mask their scent with bitterroot ash. How to move without sound on loose scree. Their banter became a lifeline. He teased her about her overly formal Dominion speech. "Do you ever just say hello? Or is it always hail, worthy companion of the path?" And she mocked his brutish human ways. "You eat with your hands like a hatchling." Yet beneath the humor bloomed something deeper. A mutual respect forged in shared hardship. Once, when Corin twisted his ankle scrambling down a ravine, Veilira didn't hesitate. She tore a strip from her already ragged robe to bind it, her touch gentle despite her usual sharpness. "Your species is fragile," she remarked, but there was no malice in it, only concern. He grinned up at her. "And yours is stubborn. Guess we balance out." They were 3 days from the Glass Peaks when Zorith's hunters found them. Not scouts. A full kill squad, 6 hulking brutes in reinforced armor, riding snarling, 6-legged reptilian mounts. They cornered them in a narrow canyon, the only exit blocked by the lead rider, a hulking brute with a plasma axe slung over his back. Corin shoved Veilira behind a boulder, raising his rifle. His power cell was blinking red. 1, maybe 2 shots left. "Stay down," he hissed. Veilira's eyes burned. "I will not hide while you die for me." But before either could act, the lead hunter dismounted, his voice a guttural growl. "The princess lives. Zorith rewards greatly for her head, or her heart, still beating." He raised a comm unit. "Call in the—" Corin didn't let him finish. He fired. The shot took the hunter in the throat, dropping him instantly. Chaos erupted. The other hunters roared, dismounting, weapons blazing. Plasma bolts seared the air, superheating the rock around them. Corin fired his last shot, taking out a second hunter, then dove behind another boulder as return fire chewed the stone to dust. "We're pinned," he yelled to Veilira. She was already moving, her eyes closed, her hands pressed against the canyon wall. A low hum began to vibrate through the ground. "What are you doing?" Corin shouted over the din, "Calling help?" She whispered, her voice strained. "The rocks. They remember." Suddenly, the canyon walls trembled. Loose stones rattled. Then larger boulders shifted. With a groan of tortured stone, a section of the cliff face above the hunters collapsed, burying 3 of them in an avalanche of rock. The remaining 2 stared in confusion, just long enough for Veilira to sprint forward, snatch the fallen plasma axe from the first hunter, and swing it in a blur of blue motion. The axe's energy field sheared through armor like paper. The last hunter fell, staring in disbelief at his own severed arm before collapsing. Silence returned, broken only by their ragged breathing and the hiss of cooling plasma. Corin stared at Veilira, axe still raised, her white hair streaked with dust and sweat, her blue skin glowing faintly with residual energy. She looked utterly terrifying and utterly magnificent. He let out a shaky laugh. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." She lowered the axe, her expression softening. "You fought well, for a fragile human." He walked over, picking up a functional plasma pistol from a dead hunter. "And you fight dirty, for a princess." They shared a look, a spark of understanding, of something unspoken passing between them. He offered her a hand up. She took it, her fingers intertwining with his calloused ones for a heartbeat longer than necessary. The glass peaks rose before them like shattered teeth of the earth, their crystalline surfaces refracting the twin suns into rainbows that danced across the barren landscape. The monastery was carved into the highest peak, its entrance guarded by ancient, silent monks in flowing gray robes. They knew Veilira. Without a word, they ushered the pair inside, offering water, food, and a small, serene chamber overlooking the valley. That night, as Corin cleaned his weapons by the light of a bioluminescent lantern, Veilira stood at the window, gazing at the stars. "Tomorrow we enter the vault," she said, not turning. "The Heartstone's power is immense. Zoratha's forces will sense its activation. We must be swift." Corin nodded, though his mind was elsewhere. "Why tell me all this?" he asked. "You could have just used me to get here, then locked me out." She finally turned, her silver eyes holding his. "Because I trust you, Corin Vale. And because—" She hesitated, a flicker of something vulnerable crossing her regal features. "Because when you pulled that dagger out, you didn't see a traitor. You saw a person. No one has looked at me like that in forever." The Vault of Echoes was a cavernous chamber deep within the mountain, its walls lined with pulsating crystals that hummed with latent energy. In the center, on a pedestal of pure obsidian, rested the Heartstone, a sphere of swirling, opalescent light, no larger than a human fist, yet radiating power that made the air crackle. Veilira approached it reverently, her hands outstretched, her lips moving in a silent incantation. As her fingers touched the stone, light exploded outward, bathing the chamber in soft, silver radiance. Images flooded the air, memories of the first ancestors, warnings of Zoratha's ambition, the stone's true purpose not as a weapon, but as a key to unity, to shared consciousness. Veilira gasped, tears streaming down her blue cheeks. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Not a tool for control, but for connection." But the activation had been felt. Outside, the monastery bells began to toll, a warning. Corin ran to the entrance. Below, in the valley, a massive war barge descended, its hull emblazoned with Zoratha's sigil, a clenched fist crushing a star. Dozens of drop pods launched from its belly, streaking toward the monastery like fiery comets. "He's here," Corin breathed. Veilira joined him, the Heartstone now cradled securely in a hidden pouch at her belt. Her expression was grim, but resolute. "The monks will hold the outer gates," she said, "but they cannot stop him. The Heartstone must not fall into his hands." Corin checked his stolen plasma pistol, then the axe he'd taken from the hunter. "Then we don't let him get it." He looked at her, a reckless grin spreading across his face. "How do you feel about causing a little more rockslide chaos?" A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "I feel ready." They fought their way through the monastery's lower levels, Veilira using her connection to the stone to manipulate the very architecture. Collapsing corridors, sealing doors with telekinetic force, while Corin provided covering fire, his human unpredictability and sharpshooting keeping Zoratha's shock troops off balance. They were a whirlwind of blue grace and human grit, a partnership forged in the desert that now burned bright in the face of annihilation. On the final stairwell leading to the peak, they encountered Zorith himself. He stood 7 feet tall, clad in black armor woven with captured starlight, his face a mask of scar tissue and cold fury. "Little traitor," he boomed, his voice shaking the stones. "You think this human mongrel can save you? Give me the Heartstone, and I will make your death quick." Veilira stepped forward, the Heartstone glowing in her hand. "It is not yours to take, Zorith. It never was." She raised the stone high, and the chamber filled with light so pure it seemed to cleanse the air. Zorith roared, charging, his energy mace crackling. Corrin didn't hesitate. He fired, not at Zorith, but at the ancient support beam above him. The plasma bolt struck true. With a groan, the beam gave way, sending a shower of crystalline shards raining down. Zorith bellowed in rage as the debris momentarily pinned him. "Now, Veilira!" Corrin yelled. She closed her eyes, focusing all her will, all the stone's power, into the mountain itself. The peak trembled. A deep, resonant hum filled the air, growing louder, until the entire summit seemed to shudder, and then lift. Not collapse. Lift. The monk's ancient tech, activated by the Heartstone's resonance, had triggered a hidden defense. The peak itself became a floating fortress, detaching from the mountain and rising into the sky, leaving Zorith and his stranded forces cursing on the ground below. As the floating peak stabilized, hovering amidst the clouds, Corrin and Veilira stood at its edge, looking down at the tiny, furious figure of Zorith far below. The war barge hovered uselessly, its weapons ineffective against the peak's resonant shield. Exhaustion hit them both like a physical blow. Corrin slumped against the railing, breathing hard. Veilira leaned beside him, the Heartstone's light now gentle in her hand. "We did it," she whispered, disbelief and triumph warring in her voice. Corrin looked at her, this fierce, impossible princess who'd defied her world for what was right, who'd trusted a nobody human with her life and her world's greatest secret. He saw the dust on her lashes, the dried blood on her temple, the quiet strength in her silver eyes. And he saw, for the first time, not just an alien princess, but Veilira. Just Veilira. He reached out, his hand brushing hers. She didn't pull away. Instead, she turned her palm up, lacing her fingers with his. Her skin was cool, but her grip was strong. "What now?" he asked, his voice rough. She looked out at the horizon, where the twin suns were beginning to set, painting the sky in hues of violet and gold. "Now," she said softly, "we rebuild, not just my world, perhaps something new." She turned to him, a real smile finally breaking through her regal mask. A smile just for him, warm and human despite her alien beauty. "You saved me, Corrin Vale. Not just my life, my hope." He squeezed her hand, the desert's harsh lessons and the mountain's silent strength echoing in his chest. The war wasn't over. Zorith would regroup. Her council would need facing. But here, on this floating sanctuary, with her hand in his and the Heartstone's gentle light pulsing between them, Corrin knew one thing for certain. He wasn't just a lost soldier anymore. He was exactly where he was meant to be. And the story, their story, was only just beginning to unfold under the alien stars. The floating peak drifted silently through the upper atmosphere of Xylos, cloaked in a shimmering veil of resonant energy that bent light and masked its presence from scanners below. For 3 days, Corrin and Veilira recovered in the monk's sanctuary, tending wounds, sharing rations of spiced root tea, and studying the Heartstone's deeper functions together. Veilira learned that the relic didn't just amplify thought. It could broadcast intentions across vast distances, awaken dormant planetary defenses, and, most crucially, reveal truths hidden in lies. It was this last power that troubled her. On the 4th morning, as they reviewed holographic star charts in the monk's archive chamber, Veilira touched the Heartstone and gasped. Her eyes widened, silver pupils dilating. The stone pulsed violently, projecting an image into the air. Not Zorith, but the Grand Chancellor of the Azure Dominion, her own uncle Veskian, standing beside him in the war room of the Dominion Citadel, handing over schematics of the monastery's defenses. Corrin stared, stunned. "Your uncle? He's working with Zorith?" Veilira's face hardened like cooled obsidian. "He didn't just abandon me, he orchestrated it. He wanted me gone so Zorith could claim the Heartstone without royal opposition, and in return, Zorith would crown him the new ruler of the Dominion." Her voice trembled not with fear, but with betrayal so deep it carved hollows beneath her eyes. "All this time, I thought they were weak, but they were traitors." Before they could process the revelation, the monastery's elder monk, a wizened being named Thaloran whose skin resembled cracked river stone, entered the chamber. The Heartstone's resonance has been detected, he intoned, his voice echoing like wind through caves. Not by Zorith, by the citadel. A Dominion fleet approaches, cloaked, fast, and bearing the Chancellor's personal sigil. Bealira's breath caught. They're coming to retrieve me? Or kill me properly this time. Corrin stood, slinging his plasma rifle over his shoulder. Then we can't stay here. But Thaloran raised a gnarled hand. There is another way. Deep beneath this peak lies the Echo Gate, a portal tied to the Heartstone's frequency. It leads to the ruins of the first ancestors on the dead moon of Siluria. There, the Heartstone can be anchored to the planet's core network, making its signal untraceable, and unleashing its full power. Bealira's eyes lit with cautious hope. Siluria? But the moon's been irradiated for centuries. No one survives its surface. Not no one, Thaloran said, his gaze settling on Corrin. The Earth Coalition once established a secret listening post there during the first expansion. Buried, shielded, possibly still functional. Corrin blinked. You're saying my people might have left us a way in? The monk nodded. Fate weaves strange threads, human. With the Dominion fleet only hours away, they descended into the mountain's core through a spiraling stairwell humming with ancient energy. At its base, a circular portal of interlocking rings pulsed with soft blue light. Bealira placed the Heartstone in its central cradle. The rings spun, the air crackled, and a vortex of shimmering light bloomed before them. Without hesitation, she stepped through. Corrin followed and found himself standing on Siluria. The moon was a graveyard of dust and shattered metal. Jagged spires of dead cities clawed at a sky choked with amber haze. Radiation warnings flickered weakly on derelict signs in faded standard script. The air tasted metallic, thin. Their radiation gauges beeped steadily, but within tolerable limits, thanks to the monk's shielding amulets. Following coordinates pulled from Corrin's fragmented memory of old Coalition briefings, they trekked through the ruins toward Sector Gamma 9. What they found wasn't just a listening post, it was a hidden weapons lab. Buried beneath collapsed ferrocrete, the facility hummed with emergency power. Inside, banks of dormant AI cores blinked to life as Corrin bypassed the security locks with a worn Coalition cipher key he'd kept as a good luck charm. The central terminal displayed a message, dated decades prior, Project Aegis. Final protocol. In the event of planetary collapse or alien incursion, activate resonance cascade via Heartstone-compatible frequency. Warning. Irreversible planetary terraforming may occur. Bealira's breath hitched. This isn't just a shield. It's a world rebuilder. Corrin frowned. Terraforming? On Siluria? That's dust and radiation. But Bealira's mind raced. Not Siluria. Xylos. The Heartstone's link to the core network, if amplified through this lab, it could cleanse Zorith's corruption, restore balance, but only if we initiate the cascade from here. Her eyes met his, filled with both awe and dread. It would require someone to stay behind, to manually hold the activation sequence. The feedback, it would be lethal. Before Corrin could respond, alarms blared. On the security monitors, 3 cloaked Dominion dropships descended through Siluria's toxic sky, landing just outside the compound. Veskian hadn't just sent assassins. He'd come himself. Within minutes, armored enforcers breached the outer walls, plasma rifles blazing. Corrin dragged Bealira behind a console as bolts seared the air. Go! He shouted over the din. Get to the core chamber. I'll hold them off. She hesitated, her silver eyes pleading. Corrin! Go! He roared, firing back with renewed fury. She turned and ran. In the core chamber, a spherical room lined with glowing conduits, Bealira inserted the Heartstone into the central node. The system whirred to life. A countdown began 120 seconds. She needed to input the resonance sequence, but the console demanded dual biometric authorization. 1 Dominion Royal, and 1 human genetic signature. Corrin's panic clawed at her throat. He was still fighting. She couldn't activate it without him. Back in the corridor, Corrin was down to his last power cell, his left arm bleeding from a glancing plasma burn. Veskian emerged from the smoke, flanked by 2 elite guards, his face twisted with contempt. Niece, he sneered. Still clinging to your pet human? How quaint. He raised a neural disruptor, a weapon designed to paralyze, not kill. The Heartstone belongs to the strong. And you were never strong enough. Corrin spat blood. She's stronger than you'll ever be. You backstabbing. Veskian fired. Corrin convulsed as the neural pulse slammed into him, collapsing to his knees. But as Veskian stepped forward to retrieve him, Corrin triggered the last trick up his sleeve. A scavenged EMP grenade from the lab's armory. He hurled it at the floor. He blast-shorted every electronic system in the corridor, including Veskian's disruptor and armor servos. In the sudden darkness and smoke, Corrin lunged, tackling the Chancellor to the ground. They grappled in the dust, human grit against alien arrogance, until Corrin jammed a shard of broken console glass into Veskian's throat. The Chancellor gurgled, his eyes wide with disbelief, then went still. Gasping, Corrin staggered toward the core chamber. Veilira was there, tears streaking her blue skin, hands hovering over the console. "You're alive," she whispered. "Barely," he coughed, stumbling to the console. He placed his palm on the scanner. The system chimed. Dual authorization confirmed. Resonance cascade initiating. The countdown resumed. 45 seconds. "The feedback," Veilira said, voice breaking. "You'll die." Corrin looked at her, really looked, at the woman who defied empires, who trusted a nobody like him, who fought with grace and fire. He smiled, weary but sure. "Then make it count." But Veilira's eyes narrowed. A flicker of defiance returned. "No," before he could stop her. She yanked a conduit cable from the wall and jammed it into the Heartstone's housing. Energy arced across her body, lifting her off her feet. The system screeched. Biological override detected. Cascade rerouted through primary carrier. "What are you doing?" Corrin yelled, trying to pull her away. "Saving you," she gasped, her voice layered with the Heartstone's resonance. "The cascade needs a living conduit, but it doesn't have to be human." Her white hair glowed, her blue skin shimmering with light. "My bloodline was made to carry this power. Let me do what I was born for." The countdown hit 0. A wave of pure, silver energy erupted from Siluria, shooting through the void toward Xylos like a silent storm. On the desert planet below, Zoratha's war barge shuddered as its weapons fizzled out. Dominion citadels flickered with restored light. Across the crimson wastes, dead flora trembled, and tiny green shoots pushed through the red sand. In the Citadel throne room, corrupt officials clutched their heads as hidden lies unraveled in their minds, truths flooding in like cleansing rain. On Siluria, the light faded. Corrin cradled Veilira's limp form. She was pale, her breathing shallow, but alive. The Heartstone lay dormant in its cradle, its work done. "You idiot," he whispered, tears mixing with dust on his cheeks. "You beautiful, stubborn idiot." She stirred, her silver eyes fluttering open. "Still fragile," she murmured, a ghost of a smile on her lips. "But worth saving." Weeks later, aboard a newly commissioned peace envoy vessel, gifted by a reformed Azure Dominion Council, Corrin stood on the observation deck, watching Xylos heal below. Forests regrew where battlefields once burned. The glass peaks shone like beacons. At his side, wrapped in a ceremonial robe of silver and blue, stood Veilira, her strength returning with every passing day. The Heartstone now rested in the ship's sanctum, its power stabilized, its purpose redirected. Not as a weapon, but as a bridge. She leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder. "They want me to be regent," she said quietly. "To rebuild the Dominion with truth, not fear." Corrin nodded. "You'll be good at it." "And you?" she asked, turning to face him. "The Coalition recalled you, offered you a medal, a ship, a home." He looked at her, really looked, and saw not just a princess but a partner, a future. "My home," he said softly, "is wherever you are." She smiled, taking his hand. Below them, the twin suns of Xylos set once more. Not on a world of war, but on one learning, slowly, how to hope again. And above it all, two hearts, one human, one alien, beat in quiet, steadfast harmony, ready for whatever came next. Years passed like desert winds, sometimes gentle, sometimes fierce, but always moving forward. Corrin never returned to Earth. He didn't need to. His home had grown roots on Xylos, in a sun-drenched villa nestled between the reborn forests of the Crimson Wastes and the shimmering foothills of the Glass Peaks. The war was a memory now, the scars on the land softened by time and the quiet magic of the Heartstone's lingering resonance. He and Veilira married beneath the twin suns in a ceremony that blended human simplicity with Dominion grace. No grand throne room, just family, friends, and the monks of the glass peaks watching with quiet approval. She wore white, not as a symbol of purity, but of new beginnings. He wore a tunic stitched with threads of azure and silver, a gift from her people. And when they exchanged vows, Corin's voice didn't shake, and Veolaira's eyes didn't cry. But their hands trembled just enough to say everything words couldn't. Their children came quickly, as if the universe itself was eager to heal through them. 3 in all Lyria, with her mother's silver eyes and white hair that caught the light like morning frost. Kaelin, sturdy and quick-witted, who inherited Corin's stubbornness and knack for fixing anything with gears or wires. And little Mira, the surprise of their later years, who could calm a skitter lizard with a touch and hum melodies that made the garden flowers bloom faster. Life was not without its challenges. Lyria once accidentally telekinetically floated her bedtime storybook into the soup pot. Kaelin built a hover scooter that nearly launched him into orbit. Mira talked to rocks, and the rocks strangely seemed to answer. But in their home, laughter outnumbered worry, and every evening ended with all 5 of them gathered on the terrace, watching the twin suns dip below the horizon, sharing stories of the day. Corin taught his children how to whittle wood, tell constellations, and never back down from what's right, even when it's hard. Veolaira taught them the old songs of the Dominion, the language of the stars, and how to listen, not just with their ears, but with their hearts. And though she was regent of a reformed Dominion, advising councils and forging peace across worlds, Veolaira always came home for dinner, always tucked them in, always saved the last piece of honey cake for Corin. One evening, as the children slept and the lamps glowed softly in the courtyard, Corin sat beside her on their favorite bench, her head resting against his shoulder just as it had on that envoy ship years ago. The Heartstone sat peacefully in its alcove inside, no longer a weapon or a relic, but a quiet guardian, a silent promise kept. He kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of desert jasmine and home. "We did all right, didn't we?" he murmured. Veolaira smiled, her silver eyes reflecting the twin moons above. "Better than all right, my fragile human," she whispered. "We built something worth saving." And under the endless alien sky, with their children dreaming safely within and peace blooming across the land they once fought to protect, they knew this was the truest kind of victory. Not in battles won, but in love shared, in family grown, in a quiet, joyful life lived together, exactly as they'd hoped. Years later, beneath Xylos's twin suns, Corin and Veolaira watched their children chase luminous desert foxes through fields of blooming crimson grass. Their home, built from reclaimed war metal and singing crystal, stood as a quiet testament to peace forged from chaos. Lyria practiced telekinetic braiding with her mother's white hair, while Kaelin taught Mira how to whistle in standard and Dominion tongue alike. Evenings ended with shared meals, laughter, and stories, some true, some wildly exaggerated by Corin. Veolaira still ruled with wisdom, but never missed a bedtime. Corin, once a nameless soldier, now gardened, told tall tales, and fixed everything, even broken hearts. The Heartstone rested peacefully in their courtyard, pulsing softly like a lullaby. No wars came, no shadows returned. They grew older, slower, but never apart. And when the twin moons rose, they'd sit hand in hand, hearts full, knowing they built not just a future, but a home worth every sacrifice.